here we have June and Carl Warnick with Pleasant Grove, and they are this month's Spotlight of the Month for the community. And we are so excited to spotlight them. And we just had a few questions for you. Can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up being in Pleasant Grove, how long your family has been in Pleasant Grove, and how you feel about Pleasant Grove?
Well, the house I'm sitting in right now is a house that my grandfather built out of native lumber out of Market Fork Canyon.
Native lumber.
And he built the house here, of which my father was born in 1900. And then 34 years later, I came along and I also was born in this house.
So tell them how your grandparents came to come here. How they came on the train and with all the people and how many died. And
Yeah.
can you remember that story? How they came from Sweden?
Well, you go ahead and you say it. You say it a little better than I can.
Well, his grandfather was 17 when he came across. He came across with all of their family, but almost all of them passed away on the way. How old was your grandfather when you got?
He was 16.
16. He came and wound up with his brother and then his brother's fiance. Are the only three that made it out of all of the people that came across.
Oh my
From
goodness.
Sweden. And so when they got here to Salt Lake, Brigham Young sent them down to Delta. But when they got here, they, of course, spoke Swedish, and there was a Swedish group here. And so they got this far and they stayed. Later on, his brother went down to Delta with his wife then, but Charles Peter stayed here and married a Danish girl that he met in Pleasant Grove. And then they built this house.
That is amazing. So
my grandfather helped supply the miners up Market Fork Canyon, and each time he'd go up there, he'd chop down a little bit of wood, and then later he drug it down. That's how the house got built.
He piled it up by Tibble Fork.
Oh, wow.
And so then when it got dry and he got enough wood, then they brought it down here to the sawmill and had the boards.
Well, they had a sawmill at the mouth of Market Fork Canyon, and that's where they cut up the first pieces. Mm-hmm. And then after they got them here in Pleasant Grove later on for the outside siding, they would take it down to Pleasant Grove City and have it planed down that way.
Wow.
So all the lumber in the house here is, if you went and saw the stringers, you'll see the bark that's still on those stringers that go across the top of it. And I took one of them out. I had it here. It's up in there, but I could show you a picture. But
the first time we went up into the rafters up there, we found a board with the initials of his grandfather on it.
Oh, that is
so
fun.
we took it off. Mm-hmm.
This is a family home that you've got to always hang on to then.
Yeah.
My father was actually, as I mentioned, was born here in the house. And then, of course, 34 years later, I came along and I was also born in the house here. So, yes, it has a lot of history with it.
So the Warnicks have been here since the mid
1800s, yes.
Since the mid 1800s. You can't become more embedded into a community than that.
Yes.
Right.
The plaque on the outside says it was finished here in 1894.
1894. Wow. That's incredible. So now I've heard rumors that you've had quite a few how should I say this?
Dignitaries, if you will.
Yeah, dignitaries,
church
officials. Yeah. Hey, tell me about that.
My grandfather was a bishop out here, and then many of the sons under him also became bishops. And so, as a result, it was one of the largest homes built out here. Mm-hmm. This is where they would hold the meetings all the time, and it was just kind of passed down that way. When my father was a patriarch later on, after his stake president, he'd hold these meetings in the other room here to give the patriarchal blessings. And so I still have a lot of people that will meet me and say, "Oh, I remember your father. He gave me my patriarchal blessings." So it does have a lot of history with it. At one of the conferences, this is where, for example, Heber J. Grant was president that came down to the conference, and because it was a large home, this is where they came and ate after the conference, as had some of the other prophets. One of the prophets, Ezra Benson, and my father were very close in the dairy business, and so he's also been here several times. And
David O. McKay.
David O. McKay has been here, and it just has been kind of grew up that way.
Yeah.
My first fellow I remember was Heber J. Grant when they had a dedication of that chapel, and I was quite young then.
And is that the White Chapel?
Yes.
Yes,
That's the White Chapel,
old
the one
the
that.
old Manila Chapel down here. We have a picture of that, and I'm a youngster there, but I remember him very well. He was a very tall man, and I remember I told my mother I thought he was a giant. She told me that was impolite, but no.
Yeah.
So as down the time we've had, because we held the positions from grandfather to son and son, this being a larger home, this is where most of them would gather all the time. So yeah, it's had a lot of history with it.
So now this is a place that the grandkids gather, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. We've turned the barn into a shop.
Kind of a shop. The barn started out as a hay barn, and then when my father married, he decided he wanted more regular income, so he started dairy business and converted the barn into a dairy barn to milk cows. And I still remember as a youngster going out there, we milked by hand. And then in the late 40s, the automatic milkers came, and so we got our first de-Laval automatic milkers, and that was quite a thrill and very important.
Carl's father was really progressive in the dairy business, and so because he knew President Benson, when President Benson was on the Dairy Council, President Benson was, is that correct? So he knew Carl's father and asked him to be the president of the American Dairy Association, and he spoke at all of the states in the United States.
Oh my
because he
goodness.
was up on the progressive things that were happening in the dairy business.
Well, father became president of the American Dairy Association for America here, which would take him to the various states. He was also a director of the Holstein Friesian Association, which is the black and white cow.
Yeah, the black and white cow.
And so that also kept him quite busy. But as the times came, he was at the proper time when all this started out new.
So can you tell them where they met? Where they were both on the board of directors at Utah State University.
Oh,
That's how they
were
became
trained
friends.
out.
Oh, okay. Well, that is great. So I noticed that there's a lot of Monte Carlos that can be found around. Tell us about that.
Was that? I missed that.
The Monte Carlos. He wants to know about all the Monte Carlos.
Well, I've always been kind of a car nut, I guess, from a little kid. I started out with Model A's and cars. They were just a love of mine. But the Monte Carlo was a special car that came out in 1970. And I was taken by the style of that car. And so I now have a collection. We have 4 of the first series Monte Carlos, which is 70 through 72. And then we have one of the second series, which was 73 on, and this is the 75. And I just like their styles.
Yeah.
A lot of them belong to our son. He's taken up on it, and then his children, his sons.
I'm passed it on to those. Let's go.
So a lot of them belong to him.
The ones out here,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
well,
we've turned the barn is no longer a dairy barn. It's now a shop where
shop.
they take care of and work on the cars. And the dune buggies. There's dune buggies out in back too.
yeah. I was
Several
gonna.
dune buggies we built. And go
Yeah.
down the sand dunes with them, and I'm not so keen on going to the sand dunes with them as I am in the mountains, because you go down the sand dunes, you come home with sand in every crevice in your body, But you go up in the mountains, and June and I, we kind of romanced it, didn't we? First got married.
Yeah, we liked it up there.
All up here in Market Canyon, and there are nice places to go. We're not in the rough and tough fast as you go. So we like to just take our time and enjoy the scenery, and
Mm-hmm.
and they're quiet, and visibility is wide open, so you can see all over, and they're just really nice. In fact, I'll invite you to go for a ride with me, and I might
Okay.
even let you drive.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I was going to ask you about the dune buggies, because I know your son Kyle quite well, and
Oh,
and he just can't quit talking about how much he loves those Monte Carlos and the dune buggies.
Right, he does.
And
He
so,
loves
it
them.
does.
so I think he got that from you, and now his kids are getting it from him. So it's an interest
Right.
that's getting passed down to those grandkids.
Right, it is.
That is a lot of fun.
Oh,
So
that's true.
so with the dairy that you had, how long was the dairy in operation?
Well, Dad started the dairies back in, I'd say, in the late 20s, right after he was married. He wanted a more favorable income rather than our orchards only gave a fruit farm in the fall. So he got into the dairy business that way, milking cows and getting a regular monthly income off of that.
Back in
He helped start he became president of the American Dairy Association, but in Utah, he helped start Highland Dairy. And that was a dairy where we had farmers in American Fork and Lehigh and a few other towns. We collect milk from there, and we opened up a dairy in Orem. And the first name was Mountain Meadow Milk, and later it got sold to Orton Dairy. But we had our own first dairy here in Utah County, and when I was a junior and senior in high school, part of my job was to take a 1.5 ton flatbed truck with a box on it and went around from here to Merrick Fork to Lehigh and back down to Linden area and collect milk and then drop it off in Orem where we built a plant. And in that Orem plant, we created dairy products and as well as ice cream, which was a downfall, you might say. But the plant in Orem, Mountain Meadow Milk, one of my first jobs in high school was to take and fill up the little van with milk products and cheeses and eggs and things, and then I'd go out through Orem there and each
Deliver 'em.
morning and
It was his downfall because he loved it.
uh,
So he ate a lot of it.
like that. And so those were part of my experiences in high school, growing up, college.
So Pleasant Grove has grown a little bit since you're a kid, huh?
Well, yeah, it was born here in the house 100 years ago, but I have been in this grove all the time. I won't say all my years because I haven't lived all my years yet.
So how are you using your land now? Are you still growing things on your land?
Whoa, I didn't catch that.
What are we doing with the land now? You have pasture.
It's mostly pasture. We just maintain it. I rent out some of the pasture to a neighbor for his horses to come over. I have enough acreage left that I take my tractors and go out and harrow the ground or mark it off, and I still irrigate, and so I have enough. I love to get on a tractor and go out there. I wish I still had more ground to get, but I'll build into buildings now. But
Yes.
I still have all the equipment though.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I did notice you've got a lot of equipment out there still.
Right.
Well, that is so much fun. Yeah.
Now I've had a great life here. I think started out with horses, the ponies, and then evolved into the tractor business and so on. So I've seen a lot of changes with that. Yeah.
Now tell us a little bit about the cable TV that you brought in.
Well, my hearing aid just plugged up. What did you say?
He wants to know about the cable TV that you
Oh.
started.
Well, there was no TV out here other than the antenna that we used to collect from Salt Lake. And I thought, well, if nobody will build it, I'll build it. And I didn't know anything about it, but I knew enough to hire smart people that did know about it.
Yes.
So I started the first cable system here in Utah County, and we've been on down further south.
Now I heard that that's what became Provo Cable. Is that true? Did it become Provo Cable?
I'm sorry, but this just went dead.
Okay.
So
Did it become Provo Cable? Did it become Provo Cable? Your North Star.
It was North Star Cable, and it was bought out by Comcast.
Oh, okay. North Star Cable, bought out by
And my son
Comcast.
that helped me build the cable company here, he now works for Comcast, or they bought him with it anyway.
Okay.
So yeah, I built most all of Utah County. I did the infrastructure for Orem and Provo with the other companies have now. But infrastructure is where you build the cable lines underground as well as above ground.
Well, I just wanted to thank you both for doing this. But before we end this up, June, I just got to ask you, what do you think of all these dune buggies and Monte Carlos and all of his interests? You enjoy those too?
I love it. Yes, I do. It's just been really great for me to be here and participate with all of them. They just love their old cars, and we go for rides and in them, and it's been a really fun experience. I love it that the boys come over and work on their cars here, and we get to see them a lot because of that. So that's a really big plus for us. It's been a great time. I like the dune buggies too. We, as he said, we.
That's how she fell in love with me, as I took her for a dune buggy ride up on the mountain.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, I enjoy the dune buggies and the old cars very much. I enjoy the old house. I enjoy a lot of the historical things that go on here, and so it's one of my favorite things.
Oh, that is incredible.
I was going to say, I've always enjoyed mechanical things. And so building a dune buggy was just, I built go-karts and stuff like that to begin with, but I built probably, the first little motorized two-wheeler that we used to go on the mountainsides. This goes way, way back.
One of my favorite stories that he told me a long time ago was when he had the, I don't know what kind of a car he had, but he was building a car, and they were building the interstate, and it wasn't being used yet, but he would take the car down to the interstate and just go and drive it on the interstate really fast. One of the cars he was working on. So that's kind of one of my favorite stories about him.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking a little bit of time to share with the community. Just appreciate you too. Thank you so much. You're an icon to the community. Thank you.